Hello, I'm Claire Smith and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be going through my Perfume Empties. I film these kinds of videos about every 6 months, so if you do like Perfume Empties videos then please do consider subscribing, and also please like this video if you do enjoy this kind of content. I'm going to link down below my Perfume Empties playlist because I do have a few videos in this series now and I know people really love watching these kinds of videos. So I'm just going to take you through each one of these fragrances and tell you whether I enjoyed it, whether it lasted, whether I would repurchase the fragrance. And I'll tell you now that, I'm quite a fickle person when it comes to purchasing fragrances. Generally, I will try a fragrance, I'll enjoy it, and then I'll move on. So it's pretty rare for me to want to repurchase a bottle. So I'm just going to take you through each one of these in turn. I've got 10 fragrances to talk about in this video, so let's get on with this. So the first fragrance is one from Moschino and it's Toy 2. So this is a super clean, laundry-like, fruity floral fragrance. People often describe this on YouTube as something that smells like a gummy bear, and clearly it's a bear, and yeah, it's fruity, so I get where they're coming from. But for me it's quite floral and musky as well. So this opens with a really bright green apple, really juicy, and there's also some white currants. So white currants to me smell like a green icy tart version of a black currant. And there's also magnolia here, so it's a really creamy, white floral, watery kind of feeling fragrance. I think as this dries down you get that signature Moschino musk. So Moschino do this thing in their fragrances where they always have like a slightly citrusy, very clean laundry style musk. And this fragrance begins to smell a little bit like a dryer sheet on my clothes after a while. I tended to spray it on clothes because it lasted a lot longer than on my skin. I had a love-hate relationship with this over its lifetime. There were points when I really enjoyed this, and I think really I like the fruitiness. I like the opening of the fragrance, but I don't tend to like the dry down of it quite so much. And I think that's really the problem with this fragrance, the Moschino musk here. I've ended up decluttering for Moschino fragrances, and I've actually finished Toy 2 Bubblegum as well. So I've now got only Moschino Funny left in my collection. I think that's enough Moschino for me right now. I don't think I'll be repurchasing this one, but I can see for sure why people enjoy this fragrance, especially in the beginning of it, because it's just so bright and cheerful and zingy. So that's Toy 2 by Moschino. So talking of laundry, this next fragrance is SJP's Lovely. So this fragrance makes me think of clean hotel duvets, clean hotel bedding, minimalistic hotel rooms. It's got that sort of texture and coolness of linen to me. And I think this one is really a lavender-based fragrance. It's something that has this very soft, almost slightly soapy lavender note to it, but actually it's not an overwhelming lavender fragrance. It's very gentle. In the opening to this fragrance, there's also a very distinctive martini note, which I really, really love about this fragrance. And as this dries down, it turns into a clean, woody musk with just that hint of that soft lavender. This one to me is just very relaxing. I wore this endlessly to bed. I hardly ever wore it during the day. I did wear it a few days to work, but really it was more of a bedtime fragrance for me. I think this fragrance would really work well in a work situation. But actually wearing this to bed, it was one of those that I could spray on at night and I could still smell in the morning. You just smell very fresh and clean when you wake up wearing this. I think this one is one that I probably wouldn't repurchase immediately, but I wouldn't rule out repurchasing it in the future. I just find it really relaxing and it's just really nice for bed. And it's so inexpensive. I mean, a 100ml bottle of this is something like £20. And is this the best fragrance in the world? Of course it isn't. It's a cheap celebrity fragrance. But it's so good for the price point, and it's often compared to Narciso Rodriguez for her, but this fragrance is at a much cheaper price point, so it's definitely worth checking out if you do like that fragrance. I think, ultimately there's a reason why this fragrance is still on the market after so long, and it's because it's a good one. So that's SJP's Lovely. So the next fragrance is one from Hugo Boss, and it's the scent for her Private Accord. So I don't know whether you remember this, but during the pandemic, this fragrance was really being hyped, and there was loads of talk about this fragrance on YouTube, and I just got curious and I ended up buying this, I think in sort of the middle of 2021. So I've had this 100ml bottle for quite some time. It's taken me a while to get through this. I think this fragrance was just a bit disappointing for me because it wasn't really how I was expecting it to smell. So people describe it as a chocolate orange fragrance. For me, it's more of a cocoa kind of fragrance. It's quite dry almost feeling, and the orange in this is quite synthetic, and it smells almost a bit boozy almost. It's sort of more like a Cointreau kind of smell, or like one of those Quality Street chocolates, like the orange cream chocolates from the Quality Street boxes. If you know, you know. This one, I just found it very disappointing with the longevity. It was less than 3 hours on my skin, and that really prompted me to use this fragrance to wear to bed, really, because that way, you know, it doesn't have to last a long time, does it? Because you're only smelling it until you go to sleep. But yeah, this one just didn't hang around on my skin, and I found that really disappointing. And I feel like if this hung around, this would be such a more popular fragrance. I did recently try the Scent for Her Magnetic, and I quite like that. I quite like the ambrette in the dry down of that fragrance, but I don't really feel like I needed it. I've already finished the Scent for Her EDP, which is more of an apricot and freesia fragrance. I wasn't really into that one. So I think I'm done with the Hugo Boss the Scent for Her line now. I wouldn't repurchase this one, but I did enjoy using it, even if it was only to bed. So that's the Scent for Her Private Accord by Hugo Boss. So the next fragrance that I finished is one from Viktor and Rolf, and it's this little mini of Flowerbomb. So this is the second mini bottle of Flowerbomb that I finished off. And I remember when I first finished the first one off, I wasn't that fussed, but finishing this one, I really enjoyed this fragrance. So I decanted this into a sprayer bottle, and actually that seemed to make it smell better to me. I don't know how that's possible, but it just did smell just more enjoyable to me. So this is a patchouli based fragrance, and I think that's really what gives me that very nostalgic vibe with this one. It was just everywhere when it first came out, and it just smells like the late 2000s to me. But this one is also a very floral fragrance, and there's also a lot of tea. There's a very strong black tea note in this fragrance. And I think the thing that's addictive about it to me is that muskiness that's left on your skin when it dries down. I can see why people just really like this fragrance. It's very spring appropriate as well. It's a very sort of, you know, joyful fragrance in a way, and quite sexy, quite a, you know, a seductive one. I think this one is not something that I want to revisit probably ever, definitely not right now. I did enjoy it, but it just doesn't smell like me now. I think I would like to try a bottle of Flowerbomb Nectar, perhaps. I think that one might be more me right now. But yeah, Flowerbomb by Viktor and Rolf, I did really enjoy it, but I don't want to repurchase. So the next fragrance that I finished is one from Marc Jacobs, and it's Daisy Dream EDT. So this fragrance is just a very clean smelling, slightly watery, fruity floral fragrance. It's definitely something that you would typically think of when you think of Marc Jacobs fragrance. This is just, you know, light, girly, sort of spring, summer, that kind of fragrance. So this one I bought back in 2020, and it's one that I do tend to reach for only in spring and summer, because in winter it's just not, it's not there really. It's a very light fragrance, and on me, the longevity of this fragrance really seemed to go down as I used up this bottle. So I remember when I first got it, it would last maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then towards the end of this bottle, it was struggling to reach 2 hours. And really, I found that quite disappointing. It's also one that doesn't project very much. It's a very quiet fragrance. And actually, this fragrance makes me think of wearing cotton summer dresses. It's just got that sort of clean linen kind of smell to it. So this one opens very fruity. It's got grapefruit, and then it's also got, after a little bit, a blackberry note. But the blackberry note here is very watery. It's not very rich and deep and dark. It's definitely more of like a very uplifting, very fruity kind of blackberry. It's also quite a warm smelling fragrance in a way, but not too warm. And also, as this fragrance dries down, it dries into a clean musk. So would I repurchase this fragrance? No, I wouldn't. I think the longevity of this, especially towards the end of this bottle, really, really annoyed me. And I don't think I can stand a fragrance that only lasts 1 or 2 hours. It's just not enough for me. I think this fragrance as well, it's just something that I've smelled elsewhere, and I have other fragrances that kind of cover that fruity floral thing that are just stronger and better. I even have another one from Marc Jacobs, Daze, that I think I prefer to this one. So I think I'm good for this type of fragrance in my collection. So this is Marc Jacobs Daisy Dream EDT. So the next fragrance is one from Gucci, and it's Gucci Guilty EDT. So this has been discontinued for a while now, and I think it's quite hard to find. And I didn't buy it from new. I got this in a bundle of fragrances. I wasn't even buying it for this one. And actually this is a 50ml bottle, but I think there was only about 10ml of fragrance left in this bottle when I got it. So don't be thinking I used up the entire bottle, because I clearly didn't. But I think I got enough of this fragrance to form an opinion on it. So this fragrance is one of those powdery lilac fragrances, and it's also got a little bit of fruitiness about it, and there's also some pink pepper in the opening, which is quite distinctive. When this dries down, it turns into something that reminds me of baby products. It reminds me of baby wipes, it reminds me of baby lotions and baby talcs. And I think that's really what I don't like about this fragrance. I think I like the opening, but not the dry down. This is actually quite strong, and it does really last on my skin as well. I think this fragrance is one that people do miss actually, and I was surprised when I smelt this because I do own Gucci Guilty Absolute Pour Femme, and I was just amazed that fragrance is a flanker of this one because they don't really smell anything like each other. I can't quite get with where that fits in with this line. But yeah, those two fragrances are very, very different. So no, I can't repurchase this one because it's been discontinued, but I wouldn't do anyway. I enjoyed trying this fragrance, and I think ultimately I prefer other lilac fragrances such as Dropped Issey. I think if I was going to buy a lilac fragrance, I'd probably buy that one. So that's Gucci Guilty EDT by Gucci. So this next fragrance I bought because I wasn't sure about the original EDP of this fragrance line. So I bought Le Belle L'Eclat. So this fragrance weirdly makes me think of Alien Eau Extraordinaire. And I think the reason it makes me think of that, even though it doesn't really smell, you know, similar in any, well, it smells a little bit similar, but not really similar. I think the reason I think of that fragrance is because that fragrance is a citrusy, creamy, floral kind of version of Alien. And this one is a citrusy version of Le Belle. And actually, this fragrance I think I much prefer to Le Belle original EDP. Firstly, not the whole world is wearing this one. Secondly, people can't smell you a mile off. It's a little bit more reserved, this one. And it's still a long-lasting fragrance. It still not actually, you know, projects in a very kind of polite kind of manner. But also I just really like how this smells. So this is an orange blossom, a really creamy orange blossom and creamy white floral fragrance with a really gorgeous vanilla. And then in the dry down, a really beautiful musky smell is left on your skin. And it's something you catch on your skin and you just smell and you think, oh, that's just really good. I'm really surprised at how much I enjoyed this fragrance and how quickly I used this up actually. I bought this second hand because it's been discontinued and it was sort of somewhere up here. I think I bought this back in, I don't know, so it was sometime last year anyway. And I've flown through this nearly full 50ml bottle very, very quickly. So yeah, if I could find this again, I probably would repurchase it. But I think because it's been discontinued a while now, I think it's quite hard to find. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And if you can find it, I would really recommend this one. So that's La Belle L'Eclat by Lancome. So this next fragrance is also one from Lancome and it's called La Nuit Trésor Musk Diamant. So this is clearly a musk based fragrance, no surprises there. But this one is a very soft, ethereal kind of fragrance. It's got raspberry in it and the raspberry isn't like a zingy, sharp raspberry. It's more like you're smelling the raspberry without breaking the skin. You can smell the hairs on the raspberry and you're just smelling the outside of the fruit of the raspberry. There's also a rose note in this and it's a very soft, again, it's a very soft pink rose note. And also the musk in this is definitely a white musk. It's a very clean musk, but it's not necessarily a laundry musk. It's just a very powdery, soft musk. This is also quite a creamy fragrance to me. It's got a creaminess to it, which I think is probably from the sandalwood and the almonds. I think maybe I could pick out the almonds from this fragrance, but I don't think I'd be able to pick out the sandalwood. It's not one of those milky kind of sandalwoods. I think this fragrance I just find very elegant. It's a very princessy kind of feeling fragrance. It feels like something that is just very clean and I don't know, like ethereal, I think is just the word for this fragrance. It is one that I tended to wear to work, or sometimes I would wear it to bed, but I always felt like I was kind of wasting it wearing to bed. I would rather wear it to work. It's one of those fragrances that lasts quite a long time on my skin, but it's not really a massive projector. But I didn't really overspray this one. I think it's one of those that is better being a skin scent. It's something that should be a skin scent. It's one of those that's designed to be a skin scent, I think. So would I repurchase this fragrance? Well, yes, I did really enjoy this fragrance. And actually I do have a new 50ml bottle here. And I think the reason I bought this fragrance was because I knew as I was coming to the end of this little travel size bottle that it was discontinued, and I really was enjoying it. And I saw this for £26 for 50ml, and I thought, do you know what, if I don't ever open it, if I just resell it, it'll be fine. So yeah, I'm quite fickle. You know, maybe I'll change my mind, maybe I'll resell it, but at least I've got the option there if I do want to open that new bottle. So that's La Nuit Trésor Musc Diamant. So this next fragrance I think is quite a classic one, and actually I've just got this little mini bottle that I discovered in a drawer at my mum's a while back, and I decided to use up. So this fragrance, I'd never really tried it before, but I remember my mum buying this on a plane back in 1993, and I just thought, you know, I've never smelt it. I'll see how it goes. So this fragrance came out in 1978, and I definitely do think it does smell quite vintage, this one. But actually I quite enjoyed this in a way. So this opens quite green and quite herbal, but even a little bit spicy, and that herbal but spiciness stays into the dry down. But really it's more like a soapy fragrance really overall. It really makes me think of something you would buy your granny at Christmas in a soap format. Something that I think is maybe because of the Lily of the Valley in this fragrance. The Lily of the Valley is very, very strong in this fragrance. Yeah, like a soap for a granny at Christmas, I'd say. This one also gives me a bit of a feeling of leather and saddle soap almost. I just think of like going for an early morning ride through a forest. It's got that sort of foresty vibe to it, and I think that's what I liked about this fragrance. But wow, this one was strong. I don't think if I had this in a spray formulation, I don't know whether I'd be able to stand it. In a dabber it was fine, it was quite like close to skin, but even then it was quite a strong one for me. This is really long lasting. This was something that would, you know, last the entire day on me. I found this a little bit overwhelming in a way, but I did still really enjoy using this. But obviously I can't repurchase, but I don't think I would repurchase. I don't think this one's me, but yeah, to have that kind of vintage feel to it, I did actually quite enjoy this. So that's Lauren by Ralph Lauren. So the final fragrance is one from Lattafa, and it's Opulent Musk. So I got sucked into buying this one back in 2021. There was just a lot of hype around this fragrance, and it was something that I ended up buying, and then I sort of didn't really know my feelings on this one for a long time, and I didn't really wear it that much. And then, yeah, I just ended up decluttering this back in January. But actually, the reason I decluttered it as well, other than the fact that I wasn't that keen on it and I wasn't using it that much, was because it was leaking. So I couldn't actually sell this fragrance. So I ended up using this fragrance up as a room spray, which is why this fragrance is in my empties video, because it technically is an empty. So this one, the thing I didn't like about it was that it smells a bit like a cleaning product to me. It smells like an upholstery cleaning product. And I think the reason for that is because it's got a very plasticky saffron note in the beginning. And it also has some sort of like fur, like balsam kind of smell about to it, like Baccarat Rouge does. And also it has a very strong musk. The musk here is kind of clean smelling, but it's not a white musk. I think, you know, this fragrance is sort of trying to be some kind of inspired by Baccarat Rouge. Not a dupe, but something along the lines of Baccarat Rouge. I'd say in comparison to Baccarat Rouge, this one is more neutral smelling. It's less sugary, and it's definitely something that's more lemony than Baccarat Rouge. It's a bit fresher. And obviously it's a lot more musky, but it definitely has a little touch of Baccarat Rouge about it. I think this fragrance, as it dries down, it becomes more leathery, and actually you get more of the fur, and also it becomes a little bit lemony. It's a little bit fresher almost. I think really the dry down to me smells a bit like a wooden tongue pusher, like you would get in a doctor's surgery, and that really gives it a very clinical, very medical feel to me. I think that's really the crux of why I don't like this one. It just makes me smell robotic almost. I just don't want to smell like I'm artificial or chemical, and that's what this fragrance smells like. Even as a room spray, I struggled with this one. It is incredibly long lasting, and it does project a lot, this fragrance. It's one of those ninja fragrances. You don't really realise how strong it is until you come back into a room and it's all you can smell. I remember one day I came back home after I'd sprayed this as a room spray, And I just felt like my house smelt of new electrical equipment. It was just very, very distinctively like almost like a Curry's, like an electrical store almost. I think this one just isn't me, and you know, it's an incredibly cheap fragrance. It's like what, £12 or something in the UK, a very, very cheap fragrance. But yeah, not one I would repurchase, and one that I'm glad to see the back of. So that's Lattafa's Opulent Musk. So that's the final fragrance in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then please press the like button, and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And please let me know which fragrances have you used up recently, and which ones would you actually choose to repurchase. I'd be really interested to know. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.